All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our 8th Tech Talk session. So this is our enablement seminar series. So if you're new here, this is something new that we're doing for this year's enablement seminar. So we are covering various IT and software topics from the months of February to November, and we are on our 8th Tech Talk sessions now. So only one more to go. So we hope you'll be looking forward to that session in November. So before we start with our program, let me share our seminar rules. I would like to show a show of hands or any emojis if you can hear me clearly. If my audio is clear, I know the weather today is not very good. So I hope you're safe. Sana po ay ligtas po tayo wherever you are joining us, whether it's in the office or at your home. So we hope you're safe. And we hope that you would learn more with our session today. So again, the session rules: participants' videos and microphones are disabled all throughout the seminar except during the Q&A portion after each topic of presentation or discussion. So there will be a Q&A after the topic of the presentation or discussion. So you can post your question at the Q&A tab, and or you may just raise your hand so we can unmute you. So the Secretariat will also be recording this seminar for documentation purposes. All right, so without further ado, let me introduce to you our speaker for this afternoon. So, our first speaker for this afternoon, Mr. Froilan ko, is the head of software technology at Synacy, where he led the development of telco products and solutions spanning billing, network, voice, and messaging systems. And over the past decade, he has guided teams through critical architectural decisions, experiencing both the successes and hard-learned lessons that come with evolving distributed systems in production. And this afternoon, he will be discussing understanding the microservices trade-off. So let us all welcome Mr. Froilan ko. Mr. Froilan, the spotlight is yours.
Okay. Hey guys, let me just quickly screen share. Oh, I cannot do a screen share. Should I take over the screen share? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay. Before we start, I have a quick word cloud here. So I just wanna get a pulse from you guys. What are your reasons to for considering microservices? So if you don't mind, like checking out the QR code and posting your thoughts. Just to start with, and yeah, will come handy later. So let's give that. I'll give you guys like around 3 minutes, then and I'll start. You guys see the QR code, right? Okay. Hello. All right. Sure. It's fine. Do you guys see the QR code? The Okay, I'll wait. I'll wait for responses in the next 2 minutes before we start. Yeah.
You may just share emojis, share thumbs up or heart if you can see the QR code. Let us acknowledge what Sir Froilan is saying. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yep, and feel free to chat anything if you have any questions on the way. think we have enough responses, I think. Um, Feel free to just post it, keep posting. I'll check it out again later, and I'll just switch to my slides. Um, okay. All right. Yeah, let's start. So, my main goal of this talk is to go over why and when microservices make sense, and I'll go through common reasons why teams opt to use microservices, and what are the downsides of it? What are the costs related to it? Often teams jump into using microservices with the wrong reasons, or let's say maybe their teams are not yet ready for it, and hopefully this talk can help you decide, or at least think about whether you want to adopt it for your current project or your next projects. So today we'll go over first with what microservices really are, and a good way to start, I think, is to compare it with monoliths. So move this away. Okay. Um, so what's a monolith? Monolith. I on the cloud word cloud, I've seen someone answered monolith there, so I'm assuming most of you guys know monolith. So generally, monolith is a single application where the components are all sharing the same code base, same process, same database, hosted in one container. Um, so in this example, in my screen share here, you can see. Let's just use an example of an e-commerce application. The user management module or the product catalog module, shopping cart, etc. They're all hosted within one application, and probably they're using the same database. So that's a monolithic architecture. In contrast, microservice architecture is an architecture that split these modules into their own services. That means these services are within their own containers. They own their own data, and they interact with each other via network calls. In contrast, here in the monolithic architecture, they probably interact with each other via method calls. So generally, microservices in a general sense are small independent services that each handles their own business functions. Key word here is they should be run and deployed independently, and ideally they own their own data. So this means having their own databases. Ideally, they don't share databases, and normally between each services they communicate over the network, whether via HTTP REST calls or maybe via messaging bus, whatever you guys use. But usually it's via network. Um, so one of the questions I presented a while ago was, what are the reasons you guys are using microservices, considering microservices? So I guess one of the key things I can see here is scalability. I think many people mentioned that. Um, I put maintenance, getting away from monolith, budget, function, separation of concerns. I'd say most of this is related to technical concerns, I'd say. Modularity. Okay. So I'll start with the technical reasons that usually teams says. The teams that I deal with, these are usually the reasons they say that they'd like to use microservice. They'd like to adopt microservice. I'll start with the technical reasons. So a while ago someone mentioned scaling there. So scaling, that's one of the common reasons I hear from people. They want the ability to scale their services in a certain way, and that they're unable to with a monolith. Um, I think somebody mentioned no one mentioned fault isolation, but that's another thing. Another common thing I've heard from teams is they want a particular way a certain thing is protected from. They want their services not to fail just because of one component failing. Um, Another common reasons that I hear is technology flexibility. What I mean here is having the ability to choose a particular programming language or a particular framework or a particular technology on each service, right? Like this is quite common. But let's examine each one of these and see when we should really use them as a reason to microservice. Okay. Um, just okay. Okay, so let's talk about better scaling. So the promise here is having the ability to scale the parts that that you really want, having the ability to scale certain components in a certain way during within certain conditions. In this case, let's use the e-commerce example a while ago. Let's say we have a user service and a payment service and a product service. Let's say they're set up in a microservice architecture. Um, and let's say it's Black Friday. There's a lot of traffic coming in, so assume there's a lot of payments going in. You wanna scale out your payment service in a way that it can handle that upcoming volume, right? So you can scale them to like 10 instances, let's say, and you can retain the scale of the users and product service, uh, like whatever the default amount is. You don't have to, and in the payment service, you can scale it to 10 instances. And with microservice, this is possible. Um, but then again, before you say that you need this, you need to really check, do you really have such an even distribution? Is there really a huge gap between the traffic, the expected traffic or expected load that your modules in your service, the modules that you expect to come in within your services? Does this use case actually exist for you? So that's something critical before you adopt microservices due to scaling. Ask yourself that first. Usually, normal services I've seen, they don't have this use case, and I'd say uh, think twice before you adopt microservice just because of scaling. Wait for this reason first. Next is fault isolation. So the promise here is having like so just comparing, just let's compare monolith and microservice here. So in the on the left here we have the monolith, right? And let's say you have a payment service here, a payment module here, and let's say that fails and that causes the whole applications to fail. Let's say, and if you have a monolith, this is bad. One module can bring down the whole app. If you have a microservice architecture, if your payment service goes down, your user service can live on. The cart service lives on. The people can still add orders because the order service is still alive. But you probably just get check out because you can't pay. So the it's not a catastrophic failure in a sense. Um, but then again, before you say you need fault isolation, do you really have this use case? Do you really have a situation wherein uh a service can actually bring down a service is actually sensitive enough so that it brings down the whole app? Does that actually exist with your use case? Do you really have is that a pain point currently? Do you have like critical outages caused by some essential function on your on your monolith? So the idea is nice, but normally I wouldn't say this is a good reason to do it. um Another thing is technology flexibility. So this one's usually what I usually find developers are excited with. Uh, Having the choice to use the best tool for the job. Meaning, let's say we have the services here, you have the user service, product service, card service, etc. In the user service, you can use TypeScript. The Go in the product service, you can use Go, and whatever's listed here. So in essence, this is a nice thing to have. It's nice to be able to have that choice, but sometimes it doesn't mean that you can do it. That you do it. So you have to really weigh. Do you really have a use case wherein that technology is without that technology, you are not able to you're not able to deliver a certain thing. If you don't usually language right now, language these days can handle multiple scenarios already. They're general purpose languages. Um, there are use cases wherein certain framework or certain libraries are only available in certain languages. Let's say like Python. Usually, it's libraries in Python usually excels for machine learning and data science, right? So there are those use cases, but you have to reflect, does that use case apply to your business needs? So really figure out if a specific technology is really preventing you from delivering value. The main reason here is the overhead that comes with adopting this kind of um, setup, like having multiple technologies across different services. There's a lot of overhead with that, which I will discuss later. Um, so so I mentioned some of the technical reasons why usually devs want to migrate to microservices. But usually, why would you want, as an organization, why would you want to migrate to microservice architecture? The like the usual reason is team scaling. So usually as your team grows, like as your company grows, you add more people, you have more teams. It will be harder to there will be more coordination between teams. It will be harder to deploy. It's inevitable that like teams block each other because they're deploying on the same code base, assuming they're using a monolith. It's unclear which code is owned by which team. So and because of that, you just can't move fast. You're weighed down by coordination, by communication. So microservices can solve this. In this case, technically, we're solving an organization problem, right? Uh, so what's the background with this? Your Melvin Conway mentioned had this quote where it says organization design system mirror their communication structures. In software engineering, this pertains to teams. So teams communicate in a certain way, and and based on that, that's gonna be the architecture that's gonna come out. So here in the left, let's say there's no clear boundary. You're working on the same code base. Domain boundaries are not clear, so everyone's like stepping on each other, and you're basically stuck on coordination hell. The, in this case, whatever the output is, it's gonna be still messy. It's gonna be messy. You'll come out with a monolith with spaghetti code and spaghetti architecture there, and it's gonna be messy, and it's gonna be really really slow because you're way down by each other. If you adopt microservices, each team can own their own service. Each service is deployed and run independently. That means there's Team A wouldn't really be bothering Team B if they deploy today, and Team B wouldn't have to wait for Team A to make any decisions. So each of the teams have their own autonomy in a sense. So it's in a sense it's gonna be faster. One key thing here that I want to mention is this only works if you have this set up already, if you have these teams already set up. Ideally, adopting microservices too early when you don't have the structure can get messy, which I will discuss also later. Okay, so now let me check. If you have any questions, just message, and I'll try to respond to them. Okay, now let's talk about what microservices actually costs. So once you adopt microservices, you'll have to deal with it with this with the distributed nature of microservices. Now you have to, like, instead of like each of your modules interacting via methods or function calls, now it goes through the network. Now you have to deal with retry logics, timeouts, circuit breakers. So complexity as far as communication between services are concerned like escalates immediately goes up. Operational ops wise, it's also harder. You instead of reading from one log, you need to aggregate the logs between your multiple of your you need to find if there's something goes wrong. You need to aggregate the logs of your services to see what actually happened. It's going to be harder to debug. Deployment is also more complex since we are deploying independently. That comes with the now we have to maintain multiple deployment pipelines. Uh, Data management wise, it's also hard because now we don't have the option to do ACID transactions. Now we might be forced to embrace eventually consistent data. Um, and uh, and lastly, I think this is the worst one. Mistakes as far as architectural rigidity. Mistakes that you make early on with your service boundaries can be costly, which I will tackle later on. Okay. So let's use a simple checkout process as an example. So in a monolith, if a customer creates an order, since order, payment, and inventory and the email service is within one application, transition between these modules would just be via method calls. We can even put the whole thing in one database transaction, so we're sure things are consistent. So it's a lot simpler. With a microservices approach, uh, order service, payment service, inventory service, and email service are now deployed separately on their own containers. So the way they communicate is now going to be via network. So whether it's API calls between each other, or if you're using asynchronous API, that's still gonna go through the network. If you're using a message bus, Kafka, SQS, whatever, that's still gonna go out to the internet. You still need network there, and with that comes with lots of possible issues. So you can experience timeouts. You can experience you have to deal with retries, and if something goes wrong in the middle, now you have to deal with rolling back the with rollback functionalities. Um, yep. So another area is in operations. So again, to compare and contrast, when you're using a monolith, if something goes wrong, if or you just need to debug whatever's, you just need to investigate an issue in production, you just look at one log file. Because with if someone raised their hand. Um, okay. I guess if you have a question, just put it in chat. I don't know how to respond to. Okay, going back to this, so if you use a monolith, debugging would be simpler because you only need to look at one log file. Um, Everything's gonna be there. If you have a problem within one of those steps, it's gonna be there. It's gonna be easy to sequence, and if you have a microservice architecture, let's say you have 5 different services, you now need to aggregate those logs. You need to look at those uh you need to look at the logs between those services. You need to string them along and correlate them together. Usually this to achieve that, now you need to like have a correlation ID between your services, so you can associate certain workflows, which ones are related to each other. You need to you need to use centralized logging tools. Like if you're using Amazon, you'll be using CloudWatch, things like that. Um, Tracing will be harder now because you need to hop between different servers, different services. So yeah, so it's more complex debugging. Another one is in data management. So as I mentioned a while ago, it's not possible to have ACID transaction between on microservices. So in monolith, let's say in the scenario we're in, you need to reserve an item, you need to pay $100, then you need to reserve the item, whatever. And To do that in a monolith, it's very simple. You just call the payment service, charge 100 there, then reserve the item from the inventory service. This can even be done in one transaction, right? In database transaction, so you're sure that it's 100% finished. Uh, if the reserved item is not there, you can easily roll back whatever the charge is here because it's in one transaction. If we're using microservices, now you have to deal with that complexity. Let's say you charge the $100 here. Now it's committed to the database. It's debited to from your customer's balance. And now if the reserved item is not there, now you have to deal with like how do you roll back that charge? And yeah, that's another code that we have to implement. That's another scenario that we have to handle. So there are complexity that comes with it, comes with this. So several solutions. I won't go into deep into them, but just want to quickly mention them if you want to ask about them later. We can apply the saga pattern here. So if you have like multiple services chained along that you want them to operate in a single sequence or a single if they're coordinate if these services are coordinating along trying to accomplish one thing, you can use the saga pattern for that. um it's out of fashion now, but you can also use two-phase commit. Personally, I haven't used this actually, but that's an option. Or you can just embrace data inconsistency. One way you can do it is via just embracing eventual consistency, and maybe even event sourcing. Okay, on to the next one. So architectural rigidity. So this is something that I had lots of experiences with this. So I've made lots of decisions in the past that I've regretted eventually. And it was caused by premature decisions. And so it boils down to service boundaries, right? So let's say you have order service and inventory service, and let's say your team already went on and created that two separate microservices, right? And later on you decided that you figured that, hey, inventory service is tightly coupled with our logic from order service, maybe they should be together. So now you have to move code from one service to another. Now you have to move the data, since the database are separate. Now you have to move the data, the models across each other. Now you have to merge them. So the work involved in fixing the decision on separating these two is hard to fix. Basically, the API contracts are already locked in. Maybe there are already consumers with your of your API that you've designed between these two. The data models are already set up in the database, and now it's harder to move them across databases. Um, so just in comparison, if this was a monolith, it would have been an easier refactor. You would have just moved your code from one module to another. Since they're using the same database, maybe there's not much change there as well. So it would have been easier if this was a monolith. Um, okay, so I guess the next question is, when does microservices actually make sense? Um, when is it worth it, given all the complexities that we have to endure when we use the architecture or the style? um when is it worth it? And what are the good reasons to have it? So let me start with the bad reasons first, because these are the um low hanging fruits here. So the having like usually I hear this with people that everyone's doing this. This is the new way of doing things, having microservices. That alone is not a good reason. Usually, what we hear online are success stories, and we don't hear uh, the horror stories that's associated with failed microservices rollout. Um, another reason I hear is like monolith being messy or being a bad design, or usually monolith is also associated with spaghetti code. It doesn't have to be. I don't think this is a good reason. This alone is not a good reason to move to microservices. Um, or maybe the team just wants to use different languages. Maybe the devs will just wants to learn or wants to try this new famous framework that this new popular framework that they just want to try that. That's also not a good reason. So mainly the good reasons are, if you want your teams to scale as far as their speed of rolling out or deployment is concerned, that's a good reason. Fixing the organization issue basically. If you have a clear business boundaries already set, so this means that the dev teams are already aware uh with what are the modules that we have, what's included in the order service, what's included in the payment service. They know the meaning of it. If the teams are because of the current setup, maybe the teams are blocked with deployment. Whenever they deploy, they need to talk to the other team. There are basically coordination overheads. That's another good reason to do this. And of course, the technical stuff that I mentioned a while ago. Those are also good reasons to do it, but you just need to really, really think about it if those actually applies to your use case. So Martin Fowler actually famously said that you need to be this tall to use microservices. So it's just because microservices, there are certain things that you need to have before you do it. In the next slide, I'll go over them. So to adopt microservice, you need to have certain things set up. So ideally, you have stream aligned teams already. So another word for this is these are product teams or domain teams, right? They own the business domain end to end, so they can make decisions by themselves, right? And they have a good understanding of the bounded context. They know their scope. They know that whenever a certain feature is asked, they know if it's on their module or not. They have direct access to stakeholders. That means it just doubles down to being able to make decisions independently. Ideally, the teams that we have at this point are not the technology layer teams like backend teams, database teams, mobile teams, because that setup usually causes enforces coordination because you can't make decisions without coordinating with the other team if you're doing front and back end team, for example. You also most importantly, you also need to have mature DevOps practices. One of the key things here is you should be able to deploy easily, and the best way to have that is to have a CI/CD pipeline. Ideally, you can also have trunk-based workflow so that you don't have long-lived branches. Everyone can just deploy quickly. Another thing is you have to have your teams have to be ready for monitoring. Depending on what cloud provider you use, or if you're hosting yourself, you have to have this set up. You have to learn how to aggregate logs, how to improve the observability of your apps. So because without it, like having microservices is a nightmare to debug. Infrastructure as code. So ClickOps doesn't cut it anymore. If you wanna have like lots of, because with if you adopt microservice, that means you'll have more independently deployable stuff in your infrastructure, and that means more server management, more infrastructure management. Ideally, you already have infrastructure as a code setup, so it's easy to replicate, it's easy to implement, it's easy to review, it's easy to replicate. And also ideally your team is not necessarily on call, but they are ready to support the services that they build. So I think it was from Amazon. They mentioned that their strategy there was to you build what you run, right? Sorry, you run what you build. And the idea there is the team is fully capable of supporting what they built. It's not a different team's responsibility. It's their responsibility. So I guess but it's we don't have to stick with microservices though. We don't have to. Microservices is not the peak architecture that we have to aim for. Uh, a reasonable alternative for this is modular monolith. Modular monolith has been the term has been floating around since like 4 or 5 years ago when I started seeing them. I think it came from the backlash of like having too complex setup with microservices. So with a modular monolith, you all of your modules are still gonna be in the monolith, but there's an emphasis on organizing them properly as far as modules are concerned. So, so maybe that one team can handle the orders module, one team can handle the payments module, inventory module, and everything. So they have clear boundaries on what areas of the code they should handle. With that, they shouldn't be stepping on each other's toes anymore. They can deploy independently and easily. Um, and um, and in comparison with microservices, you don't have to deal with network complexities anymore. You don't have to deal with whether the communication between orders and payment modules is that do we need to handle the retries there, or if it times out, what do we do? We don't have to do that anymore because it's all gonna be via method calls. So basically, it's very simple. You can still take advantage of ACID transactions. It's easy to refactor if we somehow got the boundaries wrong and we want to merge some of these modules or move certain business logic from one module to another. It's easier. It's simple to debug as well because the logs is centralized as opposed to here in microservices. It's distributed, so still need to do some work to aggregate them. Um, and you can once those technical reasons pop out, like maybe you want to scale payment modules differently, or you want to use a particular programming or technology for inventory module, you can easily extract it. So you can easily just move on, and maybe we decide later on that inventory module will be a microservice by itself and everyone else remains on the modular monolith. So I guess this is a good halfway step, and without dealing with the direct complexities that comes with microservices. My general advice here is, if you're starting with a new project, like let's say you have a new project with a um, new domain that you're not familiar with, or maybe you just joined a company and you're faced with this decision. Like I'd start with a modular monolith first. Then as these needs arise, as these technical complexities arise or technical requirements arise that requires you to move to its own microservice, that's when you move them. Um, and hopefully by that time, you already have your knowledge of the system is already mature, and there's higher chance that you'll draw the boundaries right, and um less chance for mistakes there. Um and ultimately, ideally, make sure that the team is set up in a way wherein they can handle microservices. Basically, what I mentioned a while ago, end-to-end testing. Sorry, not end-to-end, like CI/CD, CI, like having a CI/CD there, having clear team boundaries, and once you have that set up, it will be easier to adopt microservices. If you apply microservices prematurely, it might worsen the situation because of the complexities associated with it. I have a question here that let's see. So this is the end of my slide, by the way. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. So one of the questions here, it says, "What's your testing strategy for a microservice architecture? How do you balance contract test versus end-to-end test?" Um, what do you mean here by contract tests? Sorry, I'm not sure who this is. Maybe you can put it in chat.
So Josh,
Let me stop my screen share. Yeah.
so Josh, are you there? Can you provide more to your question? So while waiting for Sir Josh, so our other attendees, you may now raise your hand to ask a question, or you may also input it on, yeah, nag-reply na po si Sir Josh ulit. So it's contract tests or testing per each module or service.
Um, so so your question is, how do you balance like testing the whole flow, interacting integrate the integration test between multiple services versus just each service? Yeah. Did I get that correct?
Yes, no, sir. Yes po.
Okay. Uh, so, okay. So ideally, I buy into the the test pyramid thing, wherein ideally you have lots of tests on the unit level. In this case, it's gonna be on the microservices level. Each team has to develop their own automated tests there. So we know exactly um in isolation that their service is working. Integration test, I feel, has to be done in a uh I guess it's case to case depending on how critical the workflow is. But ideally, that's still done, but in a lesser degree. Maybe other companies have like dedicated testing teams regarding that handle those integration tests. Um, yeah, I'm not sure if that answered the question. Um, but bare minimum, you have to have automated tests on each of those, automated tests on each services.
All right. So Sir Josh said thank you. Thank you daw po, sir. So I think
Okay.
you have answered his question. So any more question for Sir Froy? So if you do not want to open your mic, you may just share it via our Q&A chat box, or if you want to elaborate more on your question. So if you're comfortable with talking to him via the mic, so just raise your hand, and we'll our speaker will answer your question. So please take this opportunity. Yes, Sister Wardots. Okay. We have unmuted you, so you may open your mic.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you.
So first question. So how do you set up the repo, by the way? So based on what I understand, microservice only uh for the backend or the request, right? So and then how do you, since you mentioned that you can use different languages on a microservice, which is true, do you use also like a monorepo or just also a monolith?
You, you can do both. So the answer is you can do both. Google is famous for having a monorepo for most of their services, so you can definitely do both. But personally, on our end, on our company, we do multi-repo. So each of the services is hosted on a different repository. I'm assuming you're talking about Git repositories, right? Right.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So in our strategy in our company, we host each service on its own repo. Our main reason there is the deployment is much easier. So we can easily set up pipelines targeting those repos. We don't have to do anything fancy, tracking each folder or anything. So it's easier. And it's also easier access management wise. We can easily say that these repos are accessed by team A and this repo is accessed by team B. So we can easily control it on that level as well. But repo shouldn't hinder you on like deciding when or whether you adopt microservice or not. So it's just an code organization strategy. So both can work.
Okay. Second question. So Lambda is more popular now. Is it considered also as a part of microservice?
Yes. So Lambda is basically function as a service, right?
Yeah.
So for everyone, so Lambda is like an Amazon. That's the Amazon function as a service. So every other services are Microsoft has their own as well. So yes, the answer is yes. So the idea is you probably in a still same logic applies. So the main change here is how it's hosted. So in Lambdas, it's hosted in a way wherein it's only up for a certain moment when the function ran, right? And usually in a more traditional running server situation, it's always running there. So it's the same thing. It's just a different hosting mechanism. So how would like the code would probably still be connecting to let's say we implemented payment service in via Lambda. So let's say you have like three functions there. Let's say one is like like let's say pay via Stripe, or maybe get all payments, or maybe get all archive payments. Let's say you have those three functions. So you'll probably just have three functions in a code base all connecting to the same database. And you don't that database is just for those group of lambdas. It's like you just have three endpoints within a Docker container, for example, if you're using Docker. In contrast with Lambda, you just have three Lambdas there exposed, but still connected to the same data source. They'll probably be in the same repo. They're using same logics in between. So yeah, I'm not sure if I answered that question. Did that make sense?
Yep, it makes sense. Thanks
Yeah.
for answering. That's all.
All right. Thank you, Sir Wardas, and thank you, Sir Froy. So we have another question. This is from Maria Lourdes. So the question is, for a startup company doing web development, would you suggest for us to do microservices RT right away, or do monolith first and later on migrate to microservices RT?
So this is perfect. That's actually my main point, right? Don't start with microservices right away unless you're really 100% sure that you know what you're working on. So since you're a startup, I'm assuming that you're working on a business domain that you're just starting to, work on. You're not familiar with what can change in the future, right? So in this case, I would recommend starting off with a modular monolith. And when that need arise, just break off into microservices at that point. And also, this actually makes it easier for you guys to make changes. You don't have to deal with, especially with startups, right? Like you have limited runway, and you don't have to deal with these unnecessary complexities dealing with like network issues, like and yeah, the complexities that I mentioned a while ago. You can skip that and focus on the main problem you're solving, which is, I don't know, whatever your startup is into.
All right, thank you, Sir Froy. So we have another question, a follow-up question from Sir Josh. So the question is, what does a properly implemented modular monolith look like, and how do you ensure no one breaks the discipline per each bounded context?
Okay, so the discipline part, I guess that's a team thing. I wouldn't put like scripts to prevent other people from editing other people's code. Like I'm not sure if that's what you're pertaining. I think it's, in a sense, it's an organization thing, right? You have to have an agreement between teams that this is my area, this is your area. You have to agree that whenever you make a change there, if you want to impose any changes on our domain, let's say I'm another team, then you have to talk with us first. And yeah, I guess it's a communication thing. It's an organization. I would solve it that way, not via any technical means. Um, yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, sir. Thank you. So we have another question. This is from an anonymous attendee. So the question is, Sir Froy, how would you structure a syllabus as a prof to teach microservices as a subject in universities?
Huh. I don't know. I'm not sure how this is. How are you supposed to teach this in school, in a school context? But if you want, if the intention is to make students try out the architecture, regardless, just to just to get a feel on how microservices are implemented, um, implementation wise, like if you want them to code different microservices just to experience it, I would I would start with teaching them how service integrations work. So there are good books around it. From the top of my head, there's a enterprise integration patterns book. I think that's good if you want to use that. But I'd start with making them understand that underneath, um, applications can be hosted differently. So if you like, making them understand that if you load Netflix or if you load Spotify, the search bar there is probably a different service from the, I don't know, the watch video thing. So underneath, these are being served by different services. They have different components. They have different teams that manage them. I'd start with that. Then have a, I don't know, have an exercise that forces them to apply that practice into to what they do. Um, yeah,
All
I'm
right.
not sure if I was not prepared with that question actually. So yeah.
That is all right, sir. So, any more question? Any additional follow-up questions? Or you may also share your insights with our speaker. So, please grab this chance to connect or interact with our speaker. So, this is once in a lifetime opportunity. Hindi po natin alam when kayo ulit mag-meet with Sir Froy. So, please grab this opportunity. So, any
Or
more questions?
or if you guys somewhat disagree to, what I mentioned a while ago, I'm happy to hear your thoughts.
Yes.
And talk it out.
You've heard our speaker. So, any more po insights? Any anything that you would like to share or ask? So last call. If there's none na, I think that is all. Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us and for sharing your knowledge and expertise with our attendees. So we'll be having a short break. So you may use this time to go to the washroom or refresh, replenish yourself. So we'll be back after 5 minutes, and we'll be introducing our second speaker. Thank you once again, Sir Froy, and thank you to our attendees for asking the question. So we'll be back after 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right. So I hope you enjoyed your short break. So let me also check if you are hearing me well, if my audio is okay. So kindly give a thumbs up, any reactions, so I can check if my microphone's okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay, so we're ready to move on to our next speaker for this afternoon. So our next speaker is Miss Gemma Rose Dublan, is which is a vision she is a visionary leader, digital transformation strategist, and women empowerment advocate in the Philippine technology and business landscape. And she is also the chief executive officer and the chief operating officer of Greywolf Technologies Philippines Incorporated, where she leads the company's mission to provide innovative IT solutions training programs and technology-driven services that empower organizations to adapt and thrive in the digital era. And this afternoon, she will be discussing securing the microservices ecosystem, DevSecOps, Zero Trust, and compliance. So let us all welcome Ms. Gem Rose Dublan. Ms. Meg, the spotlight is yours.
Hello everyone. I'm sorry about the webcam because my internet currently is a little bit sluggish. So if that's okay. Okay. So Miss Camille will just share the slide. So this is my first time to join the PSIA webinar series. I think this is an opportunity also to meet every one of you. So I hope everyone is safe and sound since it's mabagyo. We have maulan na weather, so I hope everyone is safe. And right now here in my location, it's currently raining and a little bit of very heavy rain na. So thank you. All right, so is it all good now? You can see my screen. All right, okay. So all right. So basically the topic for today that was assigned to me, okay, is about securing the microservices ecosystem. And this topic is more of DevSecOps, developer SecOps, zero trust compliance. So I believe that most of you are already experienced when it comes to development and also integration. And you've already understand some of the key points of what is zero trust compliance. So we're not going too technical here, but we'll just, relate to what has the first speaker just cited below. A while ago, Sir Freud discussed about the monolith architecture. So, let me just first discuss, no, when we say DevSecOps, is anyone here a DevSecOps officer or some doing some security operations? Any one of you can just thumbs up if you guys are already doing this kind of job. I think this one is a very challenging task because from that points of view, you don't only develop, you're also securing, and at the same time you also manage the operation, no? Medyo hindi ganun kadali yung trabaho na to kasi parang 3 in 1. So when I started, just to give you a short background of me, I started in Drupal. If you've heard about Drupal, it's an open source platform in the past, and now it's already, I think it's Drupal, I don't know the version. But I started in Drupal 5, no, 5.0 when I started there. So as a developer, I was just like beginner level. So I started from scratch and using HTML, those different kinds of programming courses from Coursera.org, and started to self-paced study. From that, I started doing some small basic website, and yeah, the learning curve is not easy, especially during that time. I'm also a single parent, and it's kind of hard because I don't have really, to be honest, the background in computer science. No, for those people who are aspiring cybersecurity or AI specialist in the future, it's not a stumbling block, I believe, that just because you don't have the computer science background, you can't study IT or you can't be a hardcore IT specialist someday. I think there's always a transition, but it's up to your dedication and of course your passion on what are the steps you're gonna do in order to improve yourself day by day. So let me just go straight to the point. When we say like this one, for example, we're discussing DevSecOps. When we define it, no, that stands for when we say DevSecOps development and security. Of course, it's not only the security, but also we're managing the operations. We're monitoring all these three phases of our work. And this is a framework that integrates security, which is, you know, in all kinds of phases in our software development lifecycle. These are all involved. And as organizations like us, like right now, I have my own company, but it's just a startup. So we need to adopt this approach so that we can reduce the risk of releasing any what kind of code we produce that has security vulnerabilities. Actually, I have a friend who is a QA as a quality assurance specialist. She recommended to me that if I'm going to develop something, I should put cybersecurity and quality assurance in the first level of the development. Because some of us, when we are developing something like developing applications or maybe developing websites, some of us, no, I don't say all, put the quality assurance testing at the end of the bottom line, no? But the practice should be from beginning to the end. It should be like the phase one, there should be already quality assurance and cybersecurity. So when we are developing the products or the application, we should already check it and test it so that we can avoid those code and security vulnerabilities. That's the one that I mentioned. So through collaboration, like we collaborate with different communities, and through the help of technology, with the automation of AI and some of the platforms we're using right now, and also if we make some clear process for our own company or organization, we can share all this responsibility into our teams, and we can enhance the security. So rather than leaving it to the end when issues can be much more difficult and costly to address, then we should also put it in the beginning. So that's part of our DevSecOps task, no? Because in traditional software development, there are some projects that are split in distinct phases. So for developer sex operation, there's planning, di ba? We do planning, design, development, and integration. The last part of it is testing. But it happens sequentially. So when we do it for several months or years, there's an what we call broken process. Kasi we sometimes put the cybersecurity or the QA testing at the end of the bottom line. So that's the best practice, I believe, when we do the uh, microservices. So since we're discussing about microservices ecosystem, moving forward to our content, okay? So part of it, the developer, I think on the first part is microservices security fundamentals. Okay, the DevSecOps integration principles. So I haven't discussed yet, as Sir Freud discussed to you about the monolithic architecture. So for me, when we say monolithic architecture in the traditional way, it is where people develop the entire system as we know it. But in a simple terms, just like managing or something like putting an efficient strategy for our small projects. So there is a benefit of monolithic architecture. So when we put on monolithic architecture, there's benefits to that. Number one, it's more easy to develop. And number two, you can open the entire project in an integrated development environment. So easy to run and easy to deploy. But all of these advantages only apply to small systems. What about if you have a bigger systems to manage? Like your system keeps growing beyond a certain size. So there will be difficulties that will arise in the near future, right? So other than that, yes, I think the slide currently is okay, Miss Camille. So, okay, so we can focus on the DevSecOps integration principle. So when we say this securing microservices ecosystem now, before we move forward to integration, when we say securing microservices, since today these are very highly used by different companies and different organization, so we have to understand what does it really refers to. So when we say securing, it's about strategy, the kind of strategy we are putting into, the tools that we are using, and the practices. So don't forget these three things so that you can protect your application, whatever applications you have built with microservices architecture. So in a microservices ecosystem is when your application is broken down into many small chunks, or when we say independent services that you use to communicate with each other, usually we use API. So this gives us more flexibility and scalability. And also, it can create more entry points for attackers. So that's the disadvantages, because the more you are very flexible and scalable, it will be more an advantage for the attackers because there will be more entry points. And it would mean that security must be designed differently compared to monolithic system. So there are three key aspects of securing our microservices ecosystem. But before we go there, since we are discussing about DevSecOps, when we apply DevSecOps throughout the entire software development lifecycle, or what we call I think that's what we call SDLC, so it's not the end of the line. So traditionally, security was tested after development, di ba? Most of the past developers, nasa huli lagi yung pagtetest, yung QA. Hindi siya ginagawa on the first part. So, dinevelop muna yung application, dinevelop muna yung website, and then ang pinaka-last na ginagawa is saka lang nila kinu-QA. Saka lang nila tinetest yung pinipentest yung mga ginagawa nila. But actually, it should be on the first part. So, it will cause delay and miss all those vulnerabilities na meron sa application. Kaya nga, as you can see in the current trends right now, no? So not all naman. Excuse me if I say this. There are so many vendors. There are so many providers and service providers for applications. But ang daming reklamo kasi ng mga customers at the end of the day because hindi kasi na-testing ng maayos yung mga applications na dinevelop. So it's because of the wrong principles and practices. Kaya nga, on the first part of our practices, dapat talaga ini-integrate na natin, ini-incorporate na natin yung tinatawag nating pag-QA, and at the same time, yung security. Nandiyan na yan sa unang part, hindi sa huli. So when we do this planning, coding, testing, deployment, and of course, operations and monitoring, dapat there will always be the first line of code until the system is running in production. So there's a completion of continuous process, no? So moving forward, when we say integration principles, there are container security orchestration, and then we have also what we call automated security testing. So papasok tayo dun sa security. So how do we test this security? How do we do that with the different kinds of platforms we're using nowadays, no? So in microservices, like, paano ko ba explain to? Siguro in a very simple way, when we say microservices, think of it like a big neighborhood, no, made up of many small houses. These are microservices. And each house has its own job. Like, for example, there is a kitchen, library, and workshop. But they all need to work together safely, di ba? In a house, there's kitchen, library, workshop, but you have to monitor and maintain all these kind of sections inside your houses. And these are all functioning. So security is about making sure no intruders can get in and everyone inside follows the rules. There's compliance. So there are basic principles in applying this. Like for example, there's authentication, yung tinatawag nating authorization, like ID check, yung mga passes, mga binibigay nating OTP, mga secured ID passwords, no? It's like yung sa in a layman's terms, like the guard at the gate checking who are you as your authentication and what are you allowed to do inside. No, you're not authorized to go inside, then you cannot pass. So, when we say API security naman, yung mga safe messaging between houses, how do we maintain that? Like for example, yung microservices, they talk to each other through messages. And yung messages na to, it symbolize the APIs, no? So we need to make sure the messages are not fake. They are authenticated and they are legit. And there are not too many at once, no? Like, when we say a delivery service has to show a verified receipt before dropping a package. So there's always a proof. And yung tinatawag naman nating secure communication wherein the house, for example, they share information in secret code. Like yung tinatawag natin ngayon, may mga encryption. So outsiders can't eavesdrop, no? Whatever is kung ano man yung mga confidential na information na hindi dapat marinig or ma-share. And we also have what we call data protection, which is encryptions of files, no? And yung mga security processes. So, in DevSecOps integration principle, let me get to the straight to the point that it's all about baking our security into every step of software development. No, hindi siya all at once, but chunk by chunk. Not just checking for problems at the end. We should already check for example, we should already visualize what will be or what will happen. Yung tinatawag nating nakikinikinita na natin or nararamdaman na natin kung ano yung pwedeng mangyari. Pagka ganito yung klase ng codes na in-apply natin. So at the first beginning of the project, dapat ina-apply na natin yung security. So the developers, the operations officers, and security teams, they can work together and collaborate as part of the principle of our integration. So when we say shift on security, there's like what we call, let's start security as early as possible, no? Sa lahat ng mga developers and programmers na kaibigan natin, dapat talaga ini-incorporate na natin, start as early as possible. Whether you are designing a website or designing an app, whether you're coding, whether you're just testing the paces, do it at the first start instead of waiting until your deployment. Kasi yung iba naghihintay pa when they are already on the production level. So, gawin na natin, no? Like it's catching a cracked brick before building the house instead of fixing the wall later, no? So, ganun ang principle na dapat nating i-apply. Ako, very simple ko lang in-explain kasi this is how I understand security. And number two, when we say automate security, as much as possible, there are so many automation nowadays, but we need to choose the better one. The best, not only the better, but the best. Use automated tools in the CI or CD pipeline to scan code, to check dependencies, and test our vulnerabilities. Like for example, yung automatic scanner ngayon that can inspect all these items, no? So sa mga websites, madami na rin tayong pwedeng gamiting automation. And number three, we have embed security. When we say CI and CD pipelines, every time code is built o nagbi-build tayo ng code, nagdi-deploy, it should go through security gates. Like we have to check all the flaws of our codes before moving forward. I do believe that all Filipino programmers and developers are very, very talented and skillful, no? Ang nagiging error lang talaga natin usually sa cybersecurity, human errors. Yung minsan sometimes hindi naman kapabayaan but sometimes we're just, nami-miss natin yung mga small details. And na-skip yon, napapabayaan yung mga events na yon na nagiging incidents, no? There are incidents na nagsimula lang sa small events, no? So, part yan ng incident response planning natin. Yung mga simple events, dapat sa small details pa lang nakafocus na tayo. And then we have embed security, collaborative responsibility. When we say collaborative, that security isn't just the security team's job. Dapat lahat tayo, when we say part of the team, kahit na hindi ikaw ang security officer or part ng security team, as part of your job, you're a developer, tester, or operation, you share responsibility. Kasi it's like you're a team player, no? We have to be a team player. And we need to apply this what we call least privilege or zero trust, no? In this policy. All right. I think we can move forward with the next slide, Miss Camille. All right. So these are the security challenges in microservices, no? When we say security challenges, kayo on your own, what are the current security challenges na na-experience nyo when you're doing your web application or whatever testing na ginagawa nyo? Anyone? Do you have any challenges when it comes to development, your development of app? Meron tayong tinatawag na mga increased attack surface na nakalagay dito sa screen, no? So, each microservice has its own APIs and endpoints. So, ang problema nga kasi, the more services we have, the more entry points na meron yung mga attackers. So, because we have a lot of data to manage. And in this current era, we have what we call issues on big data. Kasi palaki na ng palaki yung data ng mundo. And it's becoming bigger. And recently, if we're going to notice, hindi lang data centers ang nag-a-adjust. Currently, ang AI, with the automation of AI, alam naman natin kung ano nagiging effect ng AI sa ating environment. So, hindi lang yan challenge sa security, but also it's a global challenge for our resources. Kasi AI is the most thirsty being in the world kasi itong kumakain talaga ng resources of waters and energy natin. So, kada chat natin sa ChatGPT, aware naman tayo, 'di ba? Na nagko-consume yan ng energy consumption. And bakit ba? Paano nangyayari yon? So, sabi nga nila, because of the data centers and lalo na papalapit na tayo ng papalapit sa cloud computing, in this kind of era wherein AI is highly used, so lumalaki rin ang expenses and ang ating mga ginagamit para sa AI maintenance natin. Kasi sa dami na nag-o-offer ng mga AI automation tools ngayon eh. And possibly one of you are also doing AI models, no? So, kumakain yan ng malaking resources ng ating mundo. And that's why, if you notice, even China, Japan, and Korea are already thinking of another level of approach kung paano ba ma-avoid yung dependency natin sa mga tinatawag nating mga resources na yan. So, ang ibang mga scientists and experts, they're thinking of putting the data centers underwater. Kasi, syempre, since kumakain din naman ng tubig ang AI, so bakit hindi na lang ilagay daw sa ilalim ng sub, no? Sa ilalim ng tubig. And some of carbon footprint dependency ng ginagamit natin. Going back to security challenges in microservices. So, padami na ng padami yung mga services natin, no? Distributed attack surface, meron tayong tinatawag na authentication challenges, network security, complexity, and secret management. So, ano ba tong mga to? When we say service-to-service communication kasi, those microservices constantly, di ba, they talk to each other over API. So kung hindi secure, some of the attackers can intercept. Kung less yung security and hindi masyadong matibay ang security ng mga ganitong API, they can intercept through spoof or manipulate the communication. The challenge here is how we can enforce mutual authentication and encryption between all these API services. So, meron pa tayong tinatawag na data security and privacy. So, when we say data, which is spread across multiple services and databases, number one risk is yung inconsistent encryption policies. And marami dyan yung nagkakaproblema sa data leakage, no, between services. So, nangyayari pa rin yan kasi, excuse me, everything is not perfect. Kagaya nga rin sinasabi natin, whatever man-made, it's already imperfect. Kasi tayo lang din naman ang gumawa niya. So we can't rely on these platforms 100%. But we can edify, we can improve our system, our process, and our approach and strategy. Kahit hindi perfect yung ginagamit nating tools, we can enhance our human security, no? And then identify and access management, yung tinatawag nating IAM protocol, which is each service may need its own access rules. Kung paano natin binibigyan ng access yung bawat services. Ito, yung mga tinatawag nating who or which service that can access what without a proper framework. Yung mga authentication na mga service mesh natin. And then yung API security risk. One of the main gateways kasi are API. 'Di ba? So, yung vulnerability, yung mga threats like injection, attacks, yung broken authentication, DDoS, pumapasok yan because of these main gateways. So we have to monitor and log all these incidents. And with dozens and hundreds of services tracking malicious activity, it's very hard and very complex these days. Kahit napakarami nating tools and automation, mas marami tayong kinakaharap na incidents and napakahirap i-tackle lahat niyan. Lalo na kung halimbawa, for example, number 1, kulang yung budget ng company para sa pagtitrain ng mga IT people nila, no? Marami sa atin magagaling sa mga companies and we all want to become experts. Pero to become an expert, if you're not very resourceful about your self-paced study on where to get these resources, sa dami ng resources online, you can study and get certification. But of course, the certification still need to pay, no? And bibihira, I think some of the companies, they offer certification for free for their employees, depends on their performance. So lucky you have those kind of companies to support you. But I believe kaya naman nating i-handle yung mga security challenges when it comes to these microservices if we keep just enhancing on not only the system, hindi lang tayo magpapalit ng system, but also yung sa tao natin, no? I-enhance din natin yung skills ng mga individuals, part ng people, process, and technology yan, ng cybersecurity. So wag lang tayong bili ng mga kung ano-anong mga services, platforms, or tools, but also we need to also identify na part tools. And iilan lang sa atin, no? I'm not sure, but there are also some employees in the companies that are working na yung iba nangangarap na magkaroon din ng mga ganyang enhancement training. But some of the problem that they are facing is lack of budget, or sometimes gusto nila pero matagal yung approval. So, it's always the budget. So, dito sa mga ganitong security challenges, it's upon your choice kung paano nyo to kakaharapin. If you have been provided with many resources, then you are in good hands. But if you are lacking, then you need to do some of your FY, tinatawag nating do your own project or do your own DIY resources project. Okay, next slide. Okay, yung mga threat modeling approach. When we say understanding these threat modeling fundamentals, there are what we call yung systematic identities, quantities, and addresses security, no? And then may tinatawag tayong dread risk assessment. So yan yung isa sa mga complicated na bagay na kailangan nating maintindihan. When we say identity and access management, kasama yan. And of course, yung tinatawag nating bakit importante yung mga ganitong bagay. Yung STRIDE methodology is what we call the framework that identifies spoofing. Ano ba yung mga spoofing? Tampering reputation, information disclosure, and of course, yung tinatawag nating elevation of privilege threats. So, meron din tayong tinatawag na attack trees analysis, yung attack trees na graphically represent potential attack paths that help teams visualize vulnerabilities. And yan, part yan ng mga tinatawag nating modeling approaches. So, I'll explain that later on the next slide. Okay, On the zero trust, let's go back to the zero trust methodology. Yes, zero trust architecture implementation. Sorry. So when we say zero trust, this is what we call a method, no? Bakit natin kailangan i-impose yung zero trust methodology? Sa panahon ngayon na madaming tinatawag na scams, hacking, so nangyayari talaga tong zero trust, no? We have to apply zero trust methodology. We need to always apply this method kasi importante ito sa lahat ng ginagawa natin. When we say this zero trust, kasama siya sa tinatawag nating identity and access management. Kasi it has to be in line with our methodology, with our services, or kung ano man yung ginagawa natin ngayon. Because zero trust is something that we should apply when we are doing our codes or when we're doing our applications or we're building a cybersecurity team. It just means simply that we never trust and we need to always verify whatever it is, no? Even they are external or internal team. So hindi porke part siya ng internal team is automatically we trust the person. We have to apply the never trust, always verify policy. So ang isa sa mga core principles kasi of zero trust is number one, we have to verify the explicitity of the details. Always authenticate. Like if they are authorized, like these users, what are their access level, the device level, and service level. So we have to use multiple signals like their identity, ano ba yung identity ng taong to, their location, the device health and behavior, no? Do not always assume that this is easy to trust, no? Least privilege access, we have to apply that. Like we have to give users and services all the minimum access needed to do their job. Like for example, your accountant can access your finance app but not the HR record. So may mga limitations. So we have to always assume the breach kahit nakasama natin sa work yan ng 10 years na. Why? Because work as if there is always an attacker already inside your network. Hindi naman yung parang palagi ka na lang may phobia or masyadong asumera, no? But we have to always apply this in order to protect our data. So the design system is to limit blast radius and detect usual activity quickly. So para ma-detect natin agad kung ano man yung mga paparating na hindi maganda. And we have what we call microsegmentation, yung break all this network into smaller zones and protect each one individually. Example, even if hackers get into the HR system, dapat hindi sila nakaka-jump dun sa finance system natin. So, dapat meron silang mga smaller zones. Yung iba kasi ginagawa nila magkaka-centralize. So, lahat na kasi centralize yun yung system nila. Nandun na lahat yung isang file all at once. So, kaya na-hack lahat. And there should be always a continuous monitoring. Okay, next slide. So, when we say identity and access management, yung tinatawag nating IM, bakit ba siya mahalaga sa ating ginagawa? So, IM is very important because it protects our sensitive data. Number one, IM prevents unauthorized users from accessing your confidential data. For example, payroll, customer info, o yung mga tinatawag nating business secrets, mga trade secrets ng company. So without the IM protocol, even low-level accounts could access sensitive system. So we have to apply this. And it's important because it is defending our site from cyber attacks. So yung mga weak or stolen passwords are one of the top causes of data breaches. So ito yung laging nagiging issue. Because kahit na nasa cybersecurity tayo, minsan meron tayong katamaran, no? When it comes to securing or to make our password strong. To be honest, maraming ganyan. Tinatamad mag-upgrade ng password. Yung iba nga, isang password lang sa lahat ng bank account nila eh. So, yun ang mali. So, kahit na ang dami-dami mong cybersecurity tools na ginagamit, ang dami mo nang alam sa IT, pag tamad ka, mag-upgrade ng OS, ng system mo, mag-upgrade ng password mo, mag-update, wala yung lahat ng pinag-aralan mo sa cybersecurity. Kasi, mabibreach ka pa rin or magkakaroon ka pa rin ng attack. So with IAM features, it's like a multi-factor authentication or MFA that gives least privilege access. So yung organization, they can reduce risk from phishing if they apply this IAM policy. And of course, because IAM policy supports compliance and regulation. So we have napakadaming batas when it comes to compliance, to be honest. Ang dami. So number 1 na dyan yung GDPR, yung HIPAA, ISO, PCI, DSS, di ba? And kung susumahin natin, these are policies and compliance laws that controls who can access what, di ba? So in the Philippines, even in Singapore, in China, they all comply with this kind of global compliance and regulation. Because IAM policy makes it easier for us to prove compliance through auditing and access log. So lahat ng company may mga IT audit tayo, pinapa-IT audit 'yan. Actually, yung iba kasi kailangan lang talaga auditing para magkaroon ng maayos na process. Merong ibang company, akala nila ang kailangang ayusin sa kanila is process. Pero sa totoo lang, bago kayo mag-ayos ng process, ang kailangan mo nang gawin talaga is audit. Talagang audit muna. So, enable zero trust security is important also because in modern cybersecurity, it follows the principle of never trust and always verify. So, with the IAM foundation, it's also in relevance to zero trust methodology because it ensures every access request is authenticated and authorized. So, yan yung importance ng IAM. And may tinatawag siyang core components, yung identification, which is number 1, sa identification, we say identification, establish muna yung user and ano yung system. Example, username or digital certificate yung gagamitin. Yung number 2 naman na components niya is authentication. Verifying what is the identity and what is real and what is not. Example, yung password, yung biometrics ng tao, at saka yung MFA. And authorization, deciding what that user system is allowed to do. For example, yung employee, they can view payroll data, pero hindi nila pwedeng ma-edit. Ganon din sa mga Google Form, di ba? When we share Google Form to other people, they can only edit on their end some of the part na pwede nilang edit, but they cannot edit all the whole page. So, merong mga protocol, meron kang i-apply ng mga level of access. And of course, accountability, which is auditing and monitoring. So we have to track activities for compliance and detecting abuse. For example, yung mga logs that show who access sensitive files. Kailangan yan ng company. So lahat ng company merong ganitong tinatawag na components. And part ng features ng IAM is yung single sign-on, yung tinatawag nating SSO, which is one login to access multiple apps, multi-factor authentication, tsaka yung role-based or RBAC, yung role-based access control, which is also an access granted kung ano yung trabaho mo lang. Yun lang yung access mo. And privileged access management, which is a strict control over admin. Meron din tayong tinatawag na super user accounts. And of course, yung last, yung federated identities, when an identity across different organization system is also recognized. Okay, next slide. So, network segmentation. So, these are network segmentation strategies na tinatawag natin. So, these are segmentation for free-grained segmentation applied for individual service. May tinatawag tayong mga security policies between microservices regardless of their network location. And segmentation that implements based on zero trust. And of course, yung service mesh security, yung leveraging service mesh technology to implement yung mga network policies and protocol. Kasama na dyan yung encryption and access controls. Okay? Next slide. So there are continuous verification methods. May tinatawag tayong automated testing frameworks, which is also part of implementation that continuously verify security controls through automated testing. So meron tayong mga automation na ginagamit, we do pen testing and detecting vulnerabilities before your deployment process. And kasama rin yung tinatawag nating runtime monitoring solutions, is deploying tools that monitor microservices during operation and providing real-time verification of security, posture, and detecting anomalous behaviors. And ano pa, yung isa nating sinasabi na compliance validation tools, like yung utilize natin yung mga tools that automatically verify microservices. Ito yung mga regulatory requirements na ginagawa natin na apply for generating compliance, no, for reports. And yung isa naman, chaos engineering practices. These are deliberately introducing controlled failures to verify system, like yung resilience and security response mechanism across the microservices ecosystem.
Miss Meg, are you still there?
Alright? So, ano yung importance niya? Because we have to always monitor, no? Kahit na nag-apply tayo ng zero trust methodology, especially when we are doing API gateway security, importante na also i-apply natin yung monitoring. So, when we say monitoring, kasama na dyan yung mga tinatawag nating compliance and governance framework na ina-apply natin, that we have to make sure that we follow laws, regulation, and industry standards based on compliance. And how we manage IT systems, data, and security responsibly. So, it's just about ensuring that our organization operates legally, ethically, and securely to reduce all those risks. Part na kasi niyan is yung mga tinatawag nating risk management, yan, and policies and standards. So, lahat yan kailangan i-apply sa ating companies, no? So, ina-apply natin yung automated compliance monitoring na yan kasi these are continuously like running all this checking whether an organization, system, application, and processes comply with all the policies. And part niyan is yung mga policy natin as code. When we say compliance requirements, they should be written into automated rules, no? Like example, all cloud storage must be encrypted at rest, no? And then yung tinatawag nating continuous scanning system and application na continuously ini-scan natin if there are misconfigurations or vulnerabilities or there will be violations. And para mabigyan tayo ng mga tinatawag na real-time alerts and remediation. For example, when there is a system drifts out of compliance, there will be an alert triggered and it will notify us. So there are some tools that can auto fix issues like this by disabling this exposed port. But at the same time, it needs us to always monitor as part of our human task. And centralized dashboard reports, these are provided in compliance status across the entire IT environment. This is very useful for executive and auditors, and especially those regulation officers. And then may tinatawag tayong audit readiness, yung mga evidence of logs, reports, and compliance checks that are collected automatically, reducing audit preparation time. So yan, ang pinaka-benefits kasi when we do this is there's always compliant, not just an audit time. There's always faster detection, and it reduces our human errors. Okay, with the continuous verification methods, we also have runtime monitoring solutions. And this is very important during operation. So we don't need to miss out all this part of the verification methods, kasi if we miss out all this verification methods at nag-skip tayo, there will be a chaos in the end. So we have to apply all these methods. Okay, next slide. Okay, going back to compliance and governance framework, sa dami ng compliance natin, napakarami no na dapat nating i-comply. And kagaya nga ng sabi ko, yung GDPR pa lang for data privacy, lahat ng kailangan nating gamitin, lahat ng kailangan nating bylaws and regulations, standards sa industry. So I think for startup companies, yung mga IT startups, no, it's little by little, step by step procedure. Hindi yan all at once, but we have to comply. And sa tingin natin with our current industries, current situations, some of the companies naman talaga, lalo na yung mga maliliit lang ang budget, nagko-comply sila siguro may process and merong duration. But if you're a bigger company, of course, you can comply with the ISO standards, certification requirements. Pero napakadugo talaga ng ISO. So for smaller companies, hindi pa kaya yung mga ganyan. So pero at least we can comply with the GDPR, and although with the Data Privacy Act, so Cybersecurity Act, no, yung sa tinatawag nating mga bylaws. So we have to make sure all these policies and standards that we incorporate in our governance or even in our companies has a definite definition of rules for how data and system and users are managed. And there's a clear policy on how we set password policies, data classification, specialist encryption standards, and incorporate na rin yung risk management. We have to identify the risk, the cyber threats, data leaks, and non-compliance fines, kasi maraming mga tao hindi pa talaga naiintindihan din kung ano yung magiging penalty pagka hindi ka nag-comply, lalo na yung mga tinatawag natin sa Data Privacy Act, no? Define how we can mitigate those risk management. And then, of course, yung regulatory compliance ng Data Protection Act, yung sa HIPAA, sa healthcare, yung PCI, when we're processing payment for security, and yung ISO for information security management. These are part of governance and compliance. And we have to set clear roles and responsibilities, clear accountability for governance. Like compliance officer, meron talaga tayong ina-assign talaga para sa ganyang trabaho. Meron tayo sa company, dapat talagang hinahire na data protection officer. And meron tayong IT governance board. So, wag din natin kalimutan yung IT security team at saka yung SOC team natin, no? Kailangan natin yung mga security operation team natin. And monitoring and auditing, we need to comply with continuous compliance checks and regular audits, and ensure that policies are followed and all these violations are detected as early as possible so we can avoid penalties. And of course, yung number one lagi na naririnig kong nagiging issue sa ibang mga companies is yung some of their employees, pero may iba namang mga companies nowadays na nagpapatraining na. Nagiging concern na rin sila sa sa training awareness ng kanilang mga employees. They're also giving free training for their employees every month. Nag-upgrade na sila ng mga HR department nila, IT department nila. So nagpapatraining na rin sila. So it's important to educate our employees about compliance requirements and ethical practices, lalo na pagdating sa AI. Kasi there are borderlines and there are ethical practices that we need to educate our employees, no? Some people are too dependent on AI and nawawala na yung ethical practices. And there might be people nowadays na parang nagiging nangyayari, mas kinoconsult na yung AI kaysa sa nanay nila, no? Kaysa sa kanilang family. So parang nagiging doktor na nila yung AI. Pero I hope we can set boundaries when it comes to excuse me, using technology and tools in our daily lives, even when we are just working from home, no? Bigyan natin ng boundaries yung mga technologies na to. So that's why we need training and awareness for our employees. And technology and automation, by using all these SIEM tools, cloud compliance scanners or GRC platforms, we have to automate compliance monitoring and reporting para hindi na tayo mahirapan. If we can use naman all these tools. So, ang magiging benefits naman, it prevents legal penalties and fines. And of course, builds customer trust to our company by proving that data is protected. And at the same time, improves operational efficiency with clear roles. And of course, lastly, it enhances the risk resilience of our business, and there's always a business continuity of the company. In my analogy, no, compliance is a driver that must follow the law. So we have to speed limit, stop signs, and seat belts. So these are our speed limit. So with compliance, it guides us. Governance is the transport authority that set rules. monitor our roads, and of course, it issues our licenses. And of course, it finds those violators. So it bothly ensure everyone drives safely and fairly. So reducing accident and chaos. Without this compliance and governance, mahirap. Magiging chaotic ang mundo natin. Kasi there will be people who will abuse data, there will be people who abuse their access. So kailangan talaga merong compliance and governance policy sa bawat bansa. So in short, compliance and governance framework make sure that our organization are following laws, and of course how we manage those risks and using all this IT system responsibly. Okay, so next slide. So ayan, marami tayong mga regulatory requirements overview like global compliance frameworks I already mentioned now a while ago, and data protection requirements, security standards compliance, industry specific. Ang tanong, nagbabasa ba talaga tayong lahat with all these regulation frameworks? Na iintindihan ba talaga natin, nako-comprehend ba talaga natin lahat yung mga compliance policy na to? Minsan nga, kahit sa simpleng kontrata ng company natin, di natin naman talaga lahat nababasa yun. Pirma lang tayo ng pirma minsan, di ba? So I hope by those simple things na ginagawa natin, we can ensure that we are practicing comprehension, no? And wag tayo masyadong magmamadali sa pagde-decide palagi. It's always about process. So, in regulatory and excuse me, compliance, kagaya ng sinabi ko, we should always comply, no? For example, this one, like we're using all these tools, AI, whatever it is, for audit trail implementation. We have to comply what's the government set for us. Because without compliance, magiging mahirap tayo na makasunod. Mas magiging mahirap din yung mangyayari sa policy and process ng company natin. So, ang masasabi ko lang with all these regulations and policies, intindihin lang natin to ng maayos, no? Kahit anong explanation ko dito na technically, explain ko lahat to, but at the end of the day, we also need to study and comprehend it on our own. Okay, next slide. Ayan, yung tinatawag na automated compliance monitoring. Yan. Yan yung sinasabi ko kanina about compliance automation fundamentals, continuous compliance validation, regulatory mapping framework, and compliance as a code. So, lahat yan, part yan ng compliance and governance natin. And ngayon, yung tinatawag nating mga automated compliance monitoring, ito yung mga software tools, mga scripts na ginagamit natin to continuously check whether yung organization system ng company, yung application na ginagamit ng company and process, comply with these policies and regulation and security standard na meron tayo. So, it is without relying only on our manual audits, no? Instead of checking compliance once a year, yung ACM, it ensures and verify in real time, and meron siyang tinatawag na schedule basis. Ang pinaka-key features nito kasi, yung policy as code, yung sinabi ko kanina, continuous scanning, yung system and applications are automatically scanned for if there's misconfiguration, vulnerabilities, or violation. And then may tinatawag siyang real-time alerts remediation, centralized dashboard reports. So pwede natin siyang gamitin. Hindi na tayo mahirapan when it comes to reporting. It can be useful for CEO, CIO, mga executive, mga auditors, and of course yung mga regulation officers natin. And audit readiness na rin siya kasi yung mga evidence na kailangan for logs, reporting, compliance check is collected automatically na dun sa dashboard. So ang benefits, it's always compliance, it's more on faster compliance detection for violation, and it reduce human error. And at the same time, makakatipid, no? Mas madaling makakatipid ka kasi it avoids all these penalties and manual effort ng tao. And of course, pag may ginagamit kang automated reporting, it improves trust from your customers and clients, of course, with your regulators, partners, and customers. So, ano ba yung mga common tools na ginagamit for compliance reporting? Ito yung mga tinatawag nating cloud native. Isa niyan is AWS configuration, Azure, may Azure policy na rin, may GCP Security Command Center na tinatawag. And may tinatawag din third-party GRC, yung governance, risk, and compliance. Which is ang ginagamit nilang tools dyan, I think, ano bang pangalan nun? Prisma Cloud and ServiceNow GRC. So kung na-try nyo na yan, Splunk yun, isa pa yun, Splunk. And at the same time, itatawag tayong IAC security tools, yung Terraform, no? Nagamit yan for open, meron ding tatawag na open policy agent. So, in short, automated compliance monitoring is about using automation so that we can continuously enforce compliance rules. We can always detect all this violation in a quick and instant way and generate the audit reports. So it will keep our business secure and compliant 24/7. I mean, compliant, not sinabing perfect, but at least compliant 24/7. So yan. Next slide. So yun, i-audit trail implementation, ano yung purpose, strategies, and components, no? So when we say audit trail implementation, it's a detailed record ng system ng mga activities ng companies and changes na nagawa. Kung sinong nag-edit, and when, where, yun yung ina-answer yung mga tanong. Who did what, when, where, and how. So audit trail implementation means putting in place the process, the tools, the rules to automatically track and log event across your IT system. So every important action is traceable and at the same time verifiable and secure. So when we implement this kind of audit trail implementation, number one, we have to define what to track. Ano yung ita-track natin? Ito ba yung mga user login? Ito ba yung mga changes sa file, system updates, transaction, data access? Or for example, yung tanong na who access a payroll file and what changes were made. So, yun yung ano yung kailangan i-track. And then enable system application logging. We have to use built-in logging features. Like, kung meron naman tayong pwedeng gamitin na Windows event logs, Linux syslog, pwede yan, database logs. So, gamitin natin yon. Enable detailed logging for sensitive system like ERP. Meron din pwedeng gamitin mga finance applications. And use the what we call centralized logs, like send all these logs to central log management system. It prevents yung tampering since records are stored securely. So, mahirap kasi baka na-alter yung mga record and data. So, ensuring integrity and security at the same time, while it protect also our audit logs. And mas maganda kasi it use encryption and also has an access controls, no? And it's important that we set retention policies, like define how long audit trails are stored. If it's 1 year for IT, kailangan ba 1 year siya or 7 years for financial data? So, meron tayong tinatawag na definition kung ilang taon, no, dapat siya ini-store. So, comply with industry regulation, yung sa HIPAA, sa GDPR, and so forth. And then we have automated alerts, like it configure alerts for suspicious activity if there are unusual login attempts or unauthorized data access. And at the same time, review and reporting. We have to do regular review of audit logs for anomalies. And at the same time, continuous generating reports for compliance audits. So, ang paggamit kasi ng tinatawag na audit trail implementation, the benefits is there will be more and more accountability, no? Like every action na ginagawa ng bawat isa sa company is traceable to a user or system. So, merong natitrace, no? And for forensic investigation, it helps us trace the root causes of breaches and failures. When it comes to compliance naman, it meets the regulatory requirements. So when we're discussing security, the simple as detect suspicious activity as early as possible. And managers can verify the process that are followed wisely. So this audit trail is very important because it ensures the critical actions of our log and protected our system. It makes our organization more secure, compliant, and transparent. Okay, next slide. All right, I think that's the last part of our discussion, but let me just summarize all this discussions that we had today from the first slide. Just a summary, no. Um, so when we're discussing about securing the microservices ecosystem, most of us focus on the unique security challenges. So some of the security challenges nowadays arise when organization adopt microservices architecture. So when we compare this services architecture compared to traditional monolithic system, so there are differences. There are big differences talaga. Participants learned here, and I think you understand that these microservices provide the scalability for our business. Of course, it's more agile and more flexible. And it expand the attack surface and require us to have a different security mindset. Kasi yung traditional before, the end pa lang yung security. But now, we can apply it on the first phase of our project and development, the security mindset approach. And security fundamentals, when we say that, this is something like more on identity and access management, service-to-service authentication, and API gateway. So we need to adopt zero trust methodology and explore more on automated tools, explore more on container security and DevSecOps integration. So we have to monitor our role is always crucial in building secure microservice environments. It's also our part to take the challenge. So these threats nowadays, like tinatawag natin mga data breaches, API abuse, misconfiguration, and the systems if we will not properly address. So the session that I discussed today is very important in shifting security. Like we have to embed security practices as early as possible in the early development stage rather than treating it as an afterthought. So it's very important to apply that. And of course, there should be a practical strategies for monitoring microservices. Like we have to enforce the policies and ensure resilience against evolving cyber threats while we will maintain the agility in software delivery. So I think that's all for my talk today. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. If you have any question, let me know.
All right, thank you, Miss Meg. So, we are opening the floor for questions. So, any questions for Miss Meg, you may just raise your hand so we can unmute you, or you may share your questions at our Q&A chat box. Any questions po before we end the session? Do you have any questions or insights, knowledges that you would like to share with our speaker? Yes, we see one. This is from Sir Wardots again. So the question is, what are the tools you can recommend we can use to test vulnerabilities? Miss Meg, are you still there? Miss Meg? I think Miss Meg has a connection problem. So while waiting for Miss Meg, you may just input your questions at our Q&A chat box. So she will answer it once she have regained her connection.
Hello, sorry, I got lagged. Come again, what's the question?
Yes, Miss Meg. Hello, the question po is, what are the tools you can recommend we can use to test vulnerabilities?
the tools for vulnerability?
Yes.
Is it for software or for application? Either way.
Sir
All
Warda.
right. Some of the tools that we use in the past, I think it's one of the I think siguro I can recommend dynamic application security testing, no, yung OWASP. May tinatawag silang Z attack proxy. So it's an open source, you can just download it. Go to OWASP, and that's an automated runtime scanning for web app. It's great for your API if you're developing APIs and web applications. So, yun yung mare-recommend ko, yung sa OWASP. OWASP. Yan, Z Attack Proxy.
All right. Thank you, Miss Meg. Any more questions? Additional questions? I think we can take one more because our time is limited. Any more questions? Last call? None? I think that is all. Thank you once again, Miss Meg, for your wonderful presentation. So thank you for sharing your insight. I know Sir Froy has already left because he has prior commitment. So again, once again, thank you so much to our speakers for sharing your insights and knowledge with our audiences here. Thank you so much also to our audience who shared your questions and insights with our speakers. Thank you so much for participating. Yes, we have someone raising their hand. I think they just clicked it. So thank you once again. So before we let you go, let me just share with you our feedback form. So you may scan the feedback form. So we would appreciate it if you would answer the feedback form. So this will give us a few ideas on what to improve on what topic that we can discuss on for the next enablement seminar. So only those who have accomplished the feedback form will be given the copy of the recording of this session and the copy of the speaker's deck and also the certificate of participation. So you may take a screenshot. So to those who cannot access the QR link, we'll just send you an email with the link. So no worries, we will reach out to you with the link of the feedback form. All right, so before I let you go, I will just like to invite you to join us for our last Enablement Seminar Tech Talk session for November, which would discuss employment training. So if you're ever interested, kindly wait for updates on our Facebook and LinkedIn accounts. So we will be posting the details of our next session soon. So we will also be blasting this to our email blast. If you are a PSIA member, kindly wait to receive the information of our next session. So we would also like to invite you to SoftCon. So if you're not aware of SoftCon is PSIA's annual software conference. So this is the biggest software conference in the Philippines. So if you're ever interested to join, this is a great opportunity for you to network with lots of software companies that will be joining this event. So this is a big event. So we have attendees from C-level to students. So this is a broad level na attendee. So if you're ever interested to join, so we're having a super saver rate. So for the members, ito po ang ating rate. So if you like to know more about the tickets, yung inclusions and packages, you may just visit the SoftCon PH website and you may email the PSIA Secretariat emails if you have any more questions about the ticket. So we would like to encourage you to join. So that is the reason why we're not having our enablement seminar in October, because we're having our SoftCon. So we hope to see you there. So thank you so much. So I think that is all. Thank you once again for joining this session. So you may now exit the Zoom link. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Stay safe po. Ingat po tayo lahat.